Hello, Kipsters. Today is Friday, March 26th. Happy Friday. We are going to be finishing our Nearpod on percussion this week. Yesterday, we learned about the final two instruments in the percussion family, the cymbals and the auxiliary percussion, which is a lot of percussion instruments put into one group. And today, we are basically going to just learn some clues that help us identify what a percussion instrument indeed looks like. Okay, so it's pretty simple today. We only have one draw it, so if you want to follow along with the YouTube video, you can just follow along with me and you'll just listen to me talk. Or you can follow along in your own Nearpod and, of course, finish the draw it at the end. But it's very simple, nothing too challenging today, so it should be a nice, smooth lesson for us. All right, so again, we are just learning how to identify percussion instruments. So of course we did this with the brass instruments, we did this with the woodwinds. I don't think we did it with the strings because there were so many instruments that we had to spend each day learning new instruments, but we've already done this before. We've seen the clues. So now I just want to help you guys when you do have to, or maybe in the future have to identify a percussion instrument, you'll have the right tools to make the right decision. All right, so our first clue is this instrument percussion. If you want to get an idea of if this instrument is percussion, the first thing to do is to eliminate the other possibilities. Okay, the percussion family is the biggest family, and so there are many instruments that fall into this category. This might seem like a silly way to start, but identifying percussion instruments is as easy as eliminating other possibilities. So before we move on, I just want to say eliminating other possibilities. If you have to put your mouth on it and blow air into it, it's probably not a percussion instrument. Okay, that's the biggest elimination you can start with. And we're going to see what they tell us. If it has a mouthpiece, it's a wind instrument, either in the brass or woodwinds. It is not percussion. So same thing I said. If it has a mouthpiece at all, if there's any place for you to put your mouth and make sound out of that instrument, probably not percussion. Okay. Other possibilities. If it has strings that have to be plucked or bowed, it is probably not a percussion instrument. So if you see a violin or you see a guitar or you see a cello, okay, those instruments, if they have a string, probably not percussion. So if it has a mouthpiece, not percussion. If it has string, not percussion, okay? Clue number 2, making sound. Figure out how the instrument makes sound. If you have to hit it, scrape it, shake it, smack it, or, roll it, throw it, something. If anything you have to do besides blow into it with your mouth, it's probably percussion, okay? Next thing, mallets or sticks. Okay, this is a big one. When the player uses mallets or sticks on the instrument, that's another clue that the instrument is probably in the percussion family. Not all instruments in the percussion family use mallets and sticks, of course, but woodwinds and brass and definitely strings do not use them at all. So if you're seeing someone hitting an instrument with a mallet, it's probably not going to be a wind instrument, okay? Because you could turn a clarinet into a percussion instrument if you hit it with a mallet, right? But it's not making the sound that the clarinet can make. So if you have to blow into it, not a wind instrument. If you have to strike it with a mallet or a drumstick, probably a percussion instrument. Number 4, is the instrument pitched or non-pitched, okay? There are two main kinds of percussion instruments, pitched and non-pitched. A pitched percussion instrument is a percussion instrument used to produce musical notes of one or more tones, as opposed to a non-pitched percussion instrument, which is used to produce sounds of indefinite pitch. Okay, so again, a pitched percussion instrument is a percussion instrument used to produce musical notes of one or more tones. So like the timpani. The timpani can play specific pitched notes by pressing that pedal and changing the sound. Or the xylophone. The xylophone looks a lot like a piano. So if you play the same note that looks like a note on the piano, on the xylophone, you're going to get the same note. So you can't necessarily do the same things you can do on a piano that you can do. You can't necessarily do the same things you can do on a piano that you can do on a xylophone. I said it right. But you can do a lot of very similar things on the xylophone that you can do on a piano, all right? And then there's the pitched instruments, or the non-pitched instruments, like the snare drum or the bass drum or the cymbals. And these instruments, they produce sounds, but they don't have any definite pitch. They don't have an actual note. So like if I played an A on the keyboard or on the piano, I can't play an A on any other instrument like the snare drum or the bass drum, right? I can only play it on timpani or marimba, all right, or metallophone. So we got to know if the instrument is pitched versus non-pitched. If it's non-pitched, most definitely a percussion instrument. Some examples of pitched percussion are xylophones, metallophones, chimes, marimbas, timpanis, and vibraphones. These instruments play a different tone when struck in a certain place. So they're saying in a certain place, if you play a xylophone here and then play a xylophone here, they're playing different notes, right? If you play a timpani over here on your left hand and a timpani over here on your right hand, they're playing different notes, all right? So when they're struck in different places, they make different sounds. Non-pitched instruments, some examples are snare drums, rattles, shakers, scrapers, and most metal and wood instruments. You play them for the rhythm or sound they make, and not because you want to help make a melody or a harmony. So the melody is essentially the main tune of a song. The harmony is like the background vocals or like the background notes that make the sound more beautiful. And then non-pitched instruments are really there to keep the tempo of the song, to keep the beat of the song going and forward and give it a sort of rhythm in the background, okay? Our last clue here are percussion instruments if they're in the mini family, okay? There are a large number of non-pitched percussion instruments, and so we often classify them with their smaller or mini families, okay? So we're going to see a couple of mini instruments here, and if you see these instruments, it's pretty clear that they are percussion. Okay, so we have this little shaker here. You see that? Shakers are literally instruments that you shake to make sound. This includes rattles, egg shakers, maracas, seed pods, and more. And I believe this picture right here is a seed pod. I'm not sure exactly what that's called, but I'm pretty sure that's a seed pod, and you see the seeds all around it, and it looks like kind of like a gourd. So there's probably some seeds inside of that, or maybe not, and you just shake it or you spin it around and the little beads on the outside make sound. But yes, if you see an instrument and you have to shake it to make a sound, it's a percussion instrument. Next instrument. A little slow delay here. Sorry about that, guys. A scraper. So another mini family that's easy to identify is a scraper group. I have to scrape something to make it. If you have to scrape something to make it, then it's a scraper. This group includes gyros, sandblocks, and cabasas. All right, so you see that instrument right there? That's a gyro, I'm pretty sure. And so how you play it is you shake those beads, you spin them around, you scrape them, I guess, on the actual metal part that's in the inside there. Or you have sandblocks, and sandblocks you scrape those together, and it makes a sandy sound. So yeah, if you have to scrape something on there, very easily identified as a percussion instrument. Well, I skipped one. Wood blocks. Okay, any non-pitched instrument that is not scraped or shaken to make sound would fall into the wood category. This would include wood blocks, cajon, tone blocks, and claves. Maracas might be made of wood, but we would call them shakers since you have to shake them to make the sound. So you see that wood block, and that's a very particular sound. In fact, a lot of band directors, they'll use wood blocks to count off their band because you can really hear those wood blocks hit when they hit. They sound very piercing. They sound very pure. A lot of people use wood blocks to make these instruments make sounds. And then I believe our last mini family is metal instruments. Any non-pitched metal instrument that is not scraped or shaken to make sound would fall into the metal category. This would include triangles, cowbells, agogo bells, and most cymbals. Sleigh bells might be made of metal, but we would call them shakers since you have to shake them to make a sound. So this instrument right here, you hit it with a metal rod most likely. Cowbell, you can hit it with a drumstick. But I believe that is a cowbell right there, a different kind of cowbell, but it is a cowbell. Yeah, so these are the very key characteristics of your instruments. And then the final one, I believe, is a membrane. All drums fall into the category that we call membranes or skins. This group consists of any instrument that has a stretched material over some sort of frame. Stretching creates a tight drum head that you can hit with a mallet to make a sound, or your hand. When drums are first made, people would use animal skins to make the drum head, which is why some people call this group skins. Okay, so you see at the top here, the white part of that drum, that is the membrane. All right, and they used to use animal skin to make that membrane so that when they had their instruments, they could use the animal membrane to stretch it out and make that drum sound. All right, so that's a very big part as well. If you see a membrane, most likely it's going to be a percussion instrument. Is this instrument percussion or not? Look at the little hand things here. I'm not going to call it what it is, but you see that he's using his hand or her hand to play them. Is this instrument percussion or not? Go ahead and circle the word percussion or circle the word not. So you circle one of them and then you make your choice. Is this instrument percussion? If you said yes and you circled percussion, awesome job. Clearly, this is a percussion instrument. And you see, if you look close, those are mini hand cymbals. So you play them with your little fingers like this, and they make little clapping metal sounds with your fingers. So very cool. Not really seen very often in music, but they have a role and they play their role when they do. Submit your answer, and we are done with this lesson. Thank you guys so much for taking the time to do these lessons. I know with the whole cohort change and stuff, things have been very weird in terms of music lessons. Those of you who did get through all of these videos, I appreciate your interest in music. I hope you guys continue to build that love for it and that interest in it. I will keep these lessons up for the next week so that you can revisit them if you happen to miss any during these last 4 weeks. The whole last 4 weeks, we've been learning all the different family instruments. So the last month, we've been learning about woodwinds, brass, strings, and percussion, okay? So if you want to get into any extra work with those, feel free to look at the Nearpods, take your time. All the videos are online, of course, so if you want to just YouTube Percussion Family Part 3 or whatever, you can also do that as well. As always, Mr. Isaac has 3 things for you. You are kind, you are smart, you are important. Have an awesome weekend. I will see you guys soon. Until then, have an awesome day.